arm in arm with the book's author, Colleen Hoover.
Their chemistry together is insane.
Blake Lively could have chemistry with a rock.
Colleen deactivated her Instagram on January 21st, and what followed stunned fans across the internet as Blake Lively was quietly erased from her world. The same Colleen Hoover who once praised Blake as kind, honest, and the perfect lead for her novel suddenly scrubbed every trace of her from Instagram, leaving behind no photos, no tags, and no mentions, as if Blake had never existed. This wasn't just an unfollow, it was a complete digital wipeout of their once celebrated creative partnership. Known for her warm reader interactions and wholesome book updates, Hoover then went completely silent, offering no cryptic captions or subtle hints before deactivating her account altogether. When she eventually returned, fans immediately noticed the change. Every image of Blake Lively was gone, sending an unmistakable message that the partnership was over and Hoover was done pretending otherwise. While Blake Lively and her carefully curated Hollywood life with Ryan Reynolds continued to dominate headlines, chaos was reportedly unfolding behind the scenes, and Hoover appeared to have had enough. One detail stood out to fans, however, as Hoover continued following Justin Baldoni, her co-producer on the It Ends With You's film adaptation, prompting speculation that the move was intentional and symbolic. To understand how things unraveled, it's necessary to rewind to the beginning, when Hoover's emotionally raw bestseller captivated millions and its film adaptation seemed like a dream come true. Hoover trusted actor-director Justin Baldoni, praising his empathy and dedication to honoring the novel's themes. And excitement peaked when Blake Lively was cast as Lily Bloom, a choice fans initially embraced. With Hoover's blessing, Baldoni's vision, and Blake's star power, the project appeared destined for success, but cracks soon began to form behind the scenes. What started as subtle creative disagreements reportedly escalated into mounting tension, with claims that Blake Lively pushed beyond her role, reshaping scenes, questioning direction, and exerting increasing influence over the project. Baldoni, once firmly at the helm, was now navigating power struggles. And the situation intensified when Ryan Reynolds allegedly became involved in the script, a move some viewed as support and others as interference. Reports of rewrites and behind-the-scenes chaos followed, turning a heartfelt adaptation into a creative tug-of-war. The situation finally exploded when Blake Lively filed a legal complaint against Justin Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment and unprofessional conduct, while also alleging he orchestrated a smear campaign against her using PR consultants and manipulated narratives. For Baldoni, whose career was built on authenticity and advocacy, the accusations were devastating, but he quickly fired back with a countersuit for defamation, portraying Lively as controlling, manipulative, and willing to destroy reputations to get her way. He denied the harassment claims outright and alleged that Blake Lively fabricated the entire story as a power play that spiraled far beyond control, insisting that she leveraged her celebrity status to override creative decisions, dominate the production, and then turned on him when the project stopped bending to her will. The reaction was immediate and explosive, leaving the public stunned, fans sharply divided, and the media in full frenzy as social platforms turned into non-stop battlegrounds of speculation, outrage, and blind loyalty. At the center of the storm sat Colleen Hoover, whose name, reputation, and deeply personal story were suddenly entangled in one of Hollywood's messiest controversies, and she made it clear she wanted no part of it. Her response was quiet but calculated, disappearing from social media entirely before returning with a message louder than any statement could have been. Blake Lively was gone, erased completely, with no photos, no tags, and no mentions remaining. While public records confirmed Hoover had unfollowed her, yet Justin Baldoni remained firmly on her following list. To many fans, this decision went beyond taking sides and instead reflected a fierce effort to protect the integrity of the story itself. It Ends With Us was never just a romance novel. It was a deeply emotional narrative rooted in pain, survival, and growth, inspired by Hoover's own family history with domestic abuse, making the transformation of its adaptation into a spectacle of celebrity drama, lawsuits, and public accusations especially painful. What began as a creative dream had turned into something unrecognizable, and from heartfelt Instagram praise to total silence, Hoover watched her work slip further away from its original meaning. Walking away wasn't a PR tactic or a strategic pause. but a personal stand to reclaim control over a story that mattered deeply to her. As far as Hoover was concerned, this was no longer the project she agreed to be part of. And regardless of whether the lawsuits quietly dissolve or explode again in public view, one truth became undeniable: she was no longer standing beside Blake Lively. As she returned her focus to writing, to her readers, and to the quiet creative space that made her successful in the first place, Hoover chose distance over spectacle, leaving Hollywood chaos behind. Meanwhile, as the legal battle continued to spiral, it became increasingly clear this wasn't just a scandal but the inevitable eruption of long-simmering tension throughout production, with not only Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni at the center, but also Ryan Reynolds. Some framed Reynolds' involvement as nothing more than a supportive husband backing his wife, while others saw it as a glaring red flag, especially after reports claimed the Deadpool star stepped in to rework portions of the script, tweaking dialogue and reshaping character arcs in a deeply emotional romance far outside his usual genre. Insiders suggested this involvement had little to do with improving the film and everything to do with control. And matters grew even more chaotic as whispers from the set painted Blake Lively as far more than just an actress. Multiple sources claimed she had effectively taken over the production, acting as an unofficial director while Baldoni was allegedly sidelined and reduced to a figurehead, as Lively reportedly called the shots on everything from camera angles to wardrobe decisions, fueling speculation that this project served as her behind-the-camera debut in all but name and cementing the tension that ultimately pushed the entire production to its breaking point. Multiple accounts claimed Justin Baldoni struggled to maintain authority as Blake Lively allegedly ran the production like her own personal empire, with on-set disagreements over key scenes, escalating tensions, and transforming what should have been a heartfelt film adaptation into a real-life soap opera far messier than the story being filmed. While lawsuits dominated headlines and public opinion fractured, Colleen Hoover made a move no one saw coming, quietly severing ties not just with one side, but seemingly with everyone involved. Despite her earlier glowing praise for Baldoni and open admiration for Blake Lively, she appeared to cut off both without explanation, wiping away every movie premiere photo, deleting every behind-the-scenes post, and even erasing her once emotional Instagram caption that described Blake as kind, honest, and supportive. It was as if Hoover wanted to remove all evidence that she had ever been connected to the project at all. Fans were stunned, realizing this wasn't simple distancing but a complete digital erasure of her involvement. The question quickly became why. Was this an attempt to stay neutral or a calculated move to protect her future in an industry where perception is everything? On the surface, it looked like self-removal from a volatile public controversy, but her silence spoke louder than words. She issued no statement, offered no clarification, and most notably, despite the serious accusations against Baldoni, never publicly denounced him either. By scrubbing both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni from her social media presence, Hoover appeared to send a strategic message that she was choosing no side at all. To some, it was a smart act of self-preservation in Hollywood's unforgiving climate, while to others it felt like betrayal, sparking accusations that she had sold out and chosen career safety over loyalty. Rumors quickly grew that Hoover was a silent opportunist, trying to stay untouched while the fallout consumed everyone else. And one thing became clear: this was no longer just about a movie. The drama surrounding It Ends With Us had evolved into a high-stakes Hollywood war, with Hoover's own reputation now hanging in the balance. Whether this was a power play, a desperate attempt to survive industry fallout, or simply a writer caught in a storm she never wanted to face, the saga was far from over. Justin Baldoni escalated matters further by filing a staggering $400 million defamation and damages lawsuit, a number that underscored just how massive the implosion had become. In his filing, Baldoni portrayed himself as a man whose career had been destroyed, revealing that his agency, W&E, dropped him almost immediately after the allegations surfaced. And he even turned his frustration toward Hoover, accusing her of abandoning him and implicitly siding with Blake without ever hearing his side of the story. At this point, the battle was no longer just about damaged reputations, but about professional survival, leaving audiences wondering whether this was only the beginning of an even messier chapter. Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni had become a full-blown Hollywood legal war, one that was now threatening to consume Colleen Hoover's career as well, and her silence only amplified the tension. Initially, Hoover had stood firmly behind the stars attached to It Ends With Us, publicly praising their talent and promoting their involvement like a proud creator watching her dream unfold. But as lawsuits exploded and the media frenzy reached a breaking point, she vanished entirely. For weeks, her Instagram account remained deactivated with no posts, no stories, and no explanation, leaving fans scrambling for answers. And when she finally returned, her page wasn't just cleaned, it was completely obliterated, with every trace of Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni removed. No premiere photos, no behind-the-scenes memories, and no glowing captions, as if she had erased them from her timeline and, symbolically, from her life, prompting endless speculation over whether this was a desperate career safeguard or a calculated attempt to appear neutral. A move some praised as smart while others condemned as cold and calculated. To others, it reeked of cowardice, a betrayal of the very people she once publicly adored. Yet one detail continued to stand out and fuel debate. Colleen Hoover didn't just unfollow or distance herself from Blake Lively alone. She wiped both Lively and Justin Baldoni from her public-facing world. Even so, fans weren't convinced this was true neutrality, because erasing Blake, especially after she was the one who came forward with serious allegations, felt to many like a quiet but unmistakable rejection. Then came the twist that complicated everything further, as despite the apparent purge, Hoover's professional ties with Baldoni seemed to quietly remain intact. The two had worked together long before the film adaptation, and their relationship was known to run deep, with insiders pointing to private emails revealed during legal proceedings in which Hoover openly praised Baldoni's passion, vision, and talent, calling him the perfect person to bring her most personal story to life and citing his work on 5 Feet Apart as proof of his emotional storytelling ability. What made the situation even murkier was the shift in Hoover's behavior over time. As she initially appeared to offer public support for Blake Lively when the allegations first surfaced, only for her later actions to tell a far more ambiguous story. By deleting everything without issuing a single official statement, Hoover sent a message that left fans guessing, wondering whether she was silently backing Baldoni while carefully protecting her own public image. The truth remains unclear, but the speculation has been relentless, and it has cast a harsh spotlight on the once celebrated Hoover-Baldoni dynamic, a duo fans once viewed as the dream team behind It Ends With Us but now see as deeply polarizing. Their history stretches back long before Baldoni was announced as director or cast as Ryle, back to a time when Hoover entrusted him with one of the most personal stories she had ever written, a bond that now raises eyebrows rather than admiration. All of this leads to a larger and more uncomfortable question about what this controversy means for Colleen Hoover's legacy. Because the situation has all the ingredients of a Hollywood biopic gone wrong, a best-selling author at the height of her fame, an A-list cast seemingly guaranteed to deliver a box office hit, and a behind-the-scenes implosion so intense it completely overshadowed the story she originally set out to tell. The real concern now is whether Hoover's silence and strategic erasure will protect her image or haunt her long-term. Because while she built her empire on raw, emotional storytelling that resonated deeply with readers, her name is increasingly associated not with novels like Verity or reminders of him, but with Instagram purges and unexplained disappearances. To many, it felt less like damage control and more like a cleanup operation, as if Hoover was erasing evidence and quietly vanishing from the narrative altogether. Still, her strategy might actually succeed, because Hollywood loves a comeback, and by refusing to openly take sides, she may be playing the long game, avoiding the kind of public mudslinging that can permanently end a career. By staying publicly neutral, she avoids burning bridges with either of her powerful former collaborators, Baldoni, who despite the controversy still holds industry influence, and Lively, who remains a fan favorite and a box office draw even amid scandal. However, the fallout is far from contained, because the Lively versus Baldoni legal battle isn't just a feud between co-stars. It's a legal wildfire threatening to consume everything in its path, including Hoover's future projects. From major adaptations like Verity and Regretting You to reminders of him and beyond, all of which depend on studios viewing her as a safe, bankable, drama-free author. If Hollywood begins to see her as risky, those deals could disappear overnight. and critics are already questioning whether her silence is doing more harm than good. With some arguing it makes her look complicit in Baldoni's alleged misconduct, while others accuse her of abandoning Blake Lively, the very woman she once publicly praised as kind and honest. Ultimately, the situation boils down to survival. Because while Colleen Hoover may not have confronted Blake Lively in a public showdown, she raised her in a way that spoke volumes. Offering no captions, no context, only deleted memories and total silence.